Hi, I'm David Domke. I'm chair of the Department of Communication here at the University of Washington. We often like to sit down with alumni, with students, with faculty, with other members of the university community, just to ask them about their work, to learn a little bit about how they spend their days, and also to get a sense of some of the ways in which their experience at UW has impacted them. We call these Chats with the Chair, and I'm joined today by one of the persons that's being inducted into our 2015 Alumni Hall of Fame class, Colleen Fukui-Sketchley. Thank you, Colleen.
You're welcome.
So, you are the Director of Diversity Affairs at Nordstrom,
yes,
correct?
Correct.
Right? What's that mean? What does that work look like?
So basically, we look at everything that we do as a company and we try to make it as inclusive as possible, right? Both internally and externally to the company. It's the simple way of putting it. It's very complicated, but that's the simple way of saying it.
Does that mean in hiring, in opportunities to build community within an office, as well as clients?
It's merchandise. Do we have something for everybody? Is there a salesperson that you resonate with that we have on our floor? Our policies and practices inclusive? We're looking at every aspect of the company and trying to make it so that everybody feels comfortable, whether that's shopping with us or working for us.
And how long have you been working in Nordstrom? Because my understanding of the way the company works is they promote from within.
Yes,
right?
For a long time. We do still have a strong philosophy of promote from within. So I started on the floor, and I've worked at Nordstrom a total of 21 years. And yeah, I started while I was here at the U, and it was a great experience. So after I graduated, I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I started working for Nordstrom and until I found my real job. And it turned into my real job.
How did you go about creating that real job? Like if a student, this is one of the things that we try to talk to our students about, is you have to make your life happen, right? How did you, what might have been some dimensions of that?
To be honest, it was luck.
That helps too. But people who work hard,
yes,
often
and
have
are
luck.
resourceful, right? So for me, I worked on the sales floor for about 10 months, and I realized very quickly that that was not in my skill set, and I was going to leave that to the professionals who do that every day. And so I got off the floor. I worked for a corporate merchandise manager and the head of women's designer apparel. So I got to see the whole buying and merchandising side of the company. After 6 months or so on that, I literally landed in diversity affairs. But that's where I wanted to go. I did understand what the division did, and I was interested enough to want to work in that division to learn more. So there was no turnover, so I lucked out. And somebody had moved on to a different department, and I got my shot. And I stayed ever since. And
you're the director now.
But yeah, so I do report to a corporate director of diversity affairs, and I love the work. And obviously, nobody stays in one place for that long without loving it. So I lucked out in a lot of ways because I feel like I backed into my passion. It's not something I didn't know I was going to be passionate about it, and I went for it. I sort of backed into it and realized that this is what I was meant to do.
And how would communication play a role in your work? Like, I could think of many, but I'd like to ask you how communication plays some different, contributing positively or negatively to the work.
So when I chose speech comm, I had no idea what I was going to do with it. So I was probably, I don't know how many years later, several years after graduation, when it all started to come into play. And the work that I was doing, some of it was employee relations, so it's the ability to deliver tough messages and directly. In the work that I do today, it is about conveying messaging that resonates with individuals around diversity and inclusion. So it's an interesting topic because it's outside of what we do with Nordstrom and what we do every day, but it is something that is important to the company, and I have to be able to deliver a message that resonates with you so that we can move the needle in a lot of ways on our inclusion initiatives. So I use it every day. I think about it every day, to be honest. I feel like I have like this enormous toolbox of things that the major has given me that I didn't know the stuff that was in there, but now I find myself sort of pulling out things almost every single day, right? I'm thinking about those classes, the principles of group discussion, and how that comes up in meetings on a regular basis when I think about how power works, how positioning works, and how do you influence in a group, right? I mean, it comes all the time. It's just amazing. Plus, public speaking. I'm probably, over just this last weekend at a leadership conference, there's a bunch of young women from UW. Actually, they were all sophomores and juniors. And
great.
I told them, while they weren't majoring in communication, I said, guess what? You are going to look into taking Speech 220. And they all just went, oh, God. Like, because they all knew the dreaded Speech 220. And I said, you have to. I said, it is going to teach you so much about yourself and what you're capable of. I said, and you just got to know what you look like, right? And you know how to be able to deliver a message. So the public speaking thing has really come into play. I didn't think I was ever going to use that that part of my major, but it's all the time. I'm public speaking on a regular basis now.
Yeah, sure. I want to ask you a kind of a second level question on those communication attributes. Do you find that these skills, the ability to publicly speak, to think, to deliver a strong, firm message, that those are more challenging for certain groups in society because they haven't kind of been in circumstances or institutions or spaces where they've had those chances, and that's part of the diversity work?
It is. And I would say particularly for Asian Americans, and this is where I spend a lot of my mentorship time, is that this is not usually a space we feel comfortable in. In a lot of our cultures, and particularly my own in being Japanese American, is there are sayings that says the nail that sticks up gets hit, right? Standing out is not a good thing. And so for a lot of people, they're overcoming sort of that needing to stay under the radar, but really wanting to break out, right? And they're going to have to make some choices in regards to those cultural values. Are they values or are they just practices, right? And deciding how strong those are in their lives. So those are the kinds of conversations I have usually with young women, is just because you're able to do this, though, and know how to public speak and to deliver a message, it's important, right? It's important for your work. It's going to be important for just for self, I don't know. I think it's a growth thing,
it's
right?
Growth,
that
right.
comes with time.
Yeah.
And but I use it regularly, right? That ability to deliver tough messages, especially employee relations, when you have to say some of the most uncomfortable, direct things, and I can't beat around the bush because it has potentially legal ramifications if I do not say exactly those words, right? I can't allude to certain things.
Yeah.
I got to nail it. So that takes practice, and it's hard to overcome, but you do it.
I do want to ask one more question on this. So was there a process of growth for yourself in this? Or did you roll out of bed at 10 and you could do this? Or was there a period of time where you really had to come into this confidence and the strength that you have today?
Okay, well, here's the thing. So I chose speech comm because it was going to be one of those things I was never going to be comfortable with. And it was never going to be something I was going to be great at. But I figured if I knew how to do it in theory, right, and I could take all those principles and actually execute that at least I could get by, right, and I'll survive at the end and be alive at the end, because it's painful, right? Yeah. It's one of those fears, and it still is like that for me today. I don't think I will ever be comfortable with it. But the trick, right, around speech comm and what they teach you is about the idea of looking confident, right? And you would know this by just practicing over and over and over again, and feeling that sense of comfort that you know what's going to come out is going to be okay. But it's over and over and over again, and I think that's, the work that I do in community allows me to do a lot of that stuff and trial and error out there, and gives me opportunities to practice. And that's what it is. I don't think anybody, that's not true. I think there are a lot of people, probably including yourself, that have a natural ability to do that. And I just think for certain communities, it's going to be just more difficult because it's so different from how we grew up.
I'm certainly aware of the privileged spaces that I operate from, but I'm also nervous every time I go out to speak in front of people. And students ask you that, and you're like, they're saying, do you ever get nervous? Well, yes, every time.
Every time.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, my son took a Spanish class, and he had to do presentation day where he had to actually do this, and he broke out into hives.
Oh, wow.
And I have broken out into hives before, too, over stressful situations. Yeah. And to watch him do that was just painful to see, first of all. But he's like, I just can't do this. I just can't do this. This is too stressful. I can't do this. And he's, at the time he was 8. And he said, you do this all the time and you're really good at it. You don't understand. And I was like, oh my gosh, I guess you don't understand that I go through a lot to get to the point that you see when I perform and when I'm out there emceeing events and so forth. I said, I'm nervous every time. I said, how you feel? I feel like that every time.
Yeah.
But it's being able to still go through with it without breaking into hives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing all that with us.
Yeah.
Let me jump back a little bit in time. My understanding is that with your mother working here on campus and going to school, you were running around this campus at a young age. Is that right?
Yes. We spent a lot of time here. My mom came back to get her master's degree in educational administration back in the early 80s. And so my sister and I spent a lot of time here on campus. And she worked here. So that was also what brought us here.
Sure. And so you have kind of almost the blood of UW, kind of like, or the oxygen is the better word, the oxygen of UW in you. And so what are the top 2 attributes of this university that you might say to, as you have as a former president of the Alumni Association and all the work you do on this campus for Office of Minority Affairs and Diversity, what are the attributes that make this campus great? Or this university, I should say.
Gosh, I think it's the support systems that are in place to embrace students. And I love the fact of all the things that we do today for students that I don't think really existed when I was here. So I always tell people to just take advantage of every opportunity that you have here because, gosh, it's for the taking. So we're pretty lucky. So I think it's that. It's the support system. But what makes this place great I think it's the longevity and the sort of caring nature of the people who are here, that they honestly care about their students. And I'm thinking about just amazing professors and people that I've been able to work with, even through the Alumni Association, that are so dedicated to this place. So I just think UW is a pretty special place.
Thanks. That's great to hear because I always wonder how others think about it, right? Maybe to wrap up, I might ask you about this. So imagine when you do this quite a bit actually, you're talking to students, incoming students. You just said you talk to these women in leadership function. What's a characteristic or an attribute that you would say is really essential for a student to depart? Could be the Department of Communication, just could be UW generally, but you would say you've got to have this if you're going to succeed in 2015, 2020, 2025.
Critical thinking. And taking what we learn here and providing practical application to that and going after those experiences that will give you the ability to practically apply what you've learned here. And then think strategically about what that means and how do you connect it to a bigger picture. And I think that's critical.
Yeah, the ability to move between different levels of thinking, right? And to see connections this way.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Sure. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm David Domke, Chair of the Department of Communication, and it is my great privilege to do chats with the chair with these incredible people. Today I got to sit down with Colleen Fukui-Sketchley, an inductee in our 2015 Alumni Hall of Fame. Her name is now etched in on the wall of recognition outside of our office, which we're just thrilled to have looked at this morning, actually. So thanks for joining us today. See you later.